So I think in terms of our climate priorities that were identified back in 2019, 2020, with the refugee and migrant community we serve, across that period of time, across the last 5 years, both from funders and from service users, we've seen climate become increasingly more important. So funders, even if funding is not explicitly directed towards climate or climate change activity, it's expected within any funding to include elements of sustainability, elements of supporting the environment and considering the impact of both the organisation and the project that you're seeking to deliver with that funding.
So when we started this initiative, there were a lot of kind of questions asked of why were we targeting refugees and migrants in employment courses and business courses, because this is a community that doesn't have a huge carbon impact. And our answer to that was that this is also a community that is not being included in conversations or decision making, or are included in the sector. And again, the kind of more conversations that we were having with employers in the sector, employers were kind of mentioning that the sector isn't particularly diverse. So it was important for us to kind of work with employers around exploring ways in which they can kind of diversify their workforce and to retain, progress and hire refugees and migrants in those workplaces.
So in the West Midlands region, we've started to work on a carbon reduction plan. We started the work back in November. I have been working with Birmingham City Council and Solihull Metropolitan Council with their sustainability leads. So the first thing we did was identify the highest energy spending properties. So speaking to finance and looking at, say, the top 10 properties in the area and the highest spend on gas and electric, and by identifying those, that was our starting point.
So traditionally we have offered careers advice, business advice to refugees and migrants who would like to secure employment but also move on into kind of starting up their own businesses. And before the CCA project, we didn't necessarily consider intertwining sustainability as a part of those kind of conversations in workshops or in one-to-ones. Also, in terms of careers, to exploring sectors, the green sector. So working with Bristol Waste and working with organisations in the kind of reuse and recycling sector enabled us to move people on into those roles. And to learn about why sustainability was so important. A number of initiatives have started. So we have linked up with Green Skills, which was an initiative by West of England Combined Authority. We created a new partnership with them to kind of come in to offer workshops around how existing businesses can become carbon neutral. So we also had been running a accelerated cooking entrepreneurship program, our ACE course. So that came on the back of working with refugees and migrants in hotels. And we found that there were a lot of women in particular at that time who had some really great skills and qualities in cooking, culinary skills, and wanted a sense of community and bringing people together to kind of share the cuisines, increase their skills and start up their own businesses. So we launched that back in 2022, I believe. And since CCA project, we have intertwined sustainability as a part of that.
CCH has undergone over the last couple of years an asset management strategy where we aim to look at all our properties and do stock condition surveys on all our properties. That also includes getting updated certificates on EPC and looking at those properties, exchanging our older properties for newer properties, i.e. like a minimum of EPC-C. We're also looking at ways that we can reduce bills, so energy efficiency and LED lighting. We are also looking at ways that we can work with our landlords in promoting different partners who are doing schemes in terms of updating windows and boilers, and also any new properties that we bring in. So we're currently looking at bringing on new build properties, and those will be EPC-B.
So we're about to embark on a new project with the University of the West of England called Coolscapes, looking at the embodied lived wisdom and lived experience of our service users from their respective countries of origin, and how they can bring that practice to play in terms of cooling in building and cooling in infrastructure. So keeping cool, obviously, as the UK continues to warm up. We also are funded via the Adult Skills Fund to deliver education, classroom-based training to refugee and migrant service users. So within that practice, we now include green employment as an We have embarked on a number of smaller scale projects involving taking our service users, taking our refugee and migrant clients out into nature and introducing them to parts of the area outside of the city where they would usually spend their time.
As a HR team, we've implemented a few initiatives to help sustainability. First one is Cycle to Work scheme. So we have a people enabling committee on board, and this is something that came directly from staff as a request that we would help with sustainability, and we implemented the Cycle to Work scheme, which enables staff to, rather than use their car, purchase a bicycle to cycle to work, to use specifically for that. The second one is our flexible working policy, which enables our staff to work hybridly, some days at home, some days in the office, which again reduces the amount of time they have to commute and travel into work by bus, by train, by car. The next one, which is one we're currently implementing and should be in place in the next 2 months, is an electric car salary sacrifice scheme, which enables our staff to lease an electric vehicle to use for commuting and for business purposes, which again will reduce our carbon footprint or carbon impact. When we as a HR team, we organize yearly staff events, like all staff away days, managers retreats, and as part of that, we always encourage our staff to either get a lift with one another, and we normally organize transport like a minibus, which again reduces the amount of vehicles that we use to get to these events.
So future aspirations to have minimum standards for rented accommodation and bring down our sort of carbon reduction, so to reduce our carbon footprint, work with net zero sustainability leads and partners. We're looking at moving over to, rather than having 10 or 11 different energy suppliers, move over to 1 or 2 energy suppliers, then preferably green energy suppliers to help. So this all fits into.
So I think, as I mentioned at the beginning, we obviously operate outside of Bristol, so we have an additional 4 offices across the West Midlands that are operating out there. So I think our primary aim really at present is to expand the work of this this project and to take it up into those parts of the country where we haven't delivered it before. So looking at doing some work around the climate in Coventry, Birmingham, Wolverhampton, and our offices up there. We're also looking at continuation of the role and the work within Bristol. In addition to that, we are a social landlord, so we own and lease a number of properties. So we are looking at the sustainability of those properties, introducing insulation, reducing bills, so both for financial benefit for residents, but also for the benefit of the planet.
I think the future aspiration is looking at what is there and looking at older properties in general, really. I think the ambitions are the regulator, and there are certain consumer standards that are in place, and I think it's following that line to bring up the quality of our homes and ensuring our tenant safety. I think the ambition is for us to know our properties well, to do the basics brilliantly, to engage with our tenants and work with them on reducing their costs, but also ensuring that their homes are warm and safe and they are nice places to be. So the aspiration is that we also look towards flipping what we already have, which is a very lease-based model, to more home ownership, which will allow us to have more control of our homes, but also the ability for us to work much more in line with our landlords, helping them really bring up that quality of those homes, so that, you know, there are more homes out there that are able to be rented either through supported housing, through move-on accommodation, social housing, keeping it affordable. And I think there is a serious lack of that. So it's about supporting our landlords, working with them, but also supporting ourselves to have more home ownership.
HR is in a unique position because we affect the whole journey from the day that a person starts in the organization to the day they leave. And one of our aspirations is to look at all our processes and all our policies and to see what we can do to in terms of sustainability, and implement initiatives and a section in our policy that relates to sustainability, even if it's a small impact that will add to the overall sustainability of the organization.
Future aspirations, I think, is to continue with intertwining sustainability into all parts of our support. So whether that's kind of careers advice and matching up with green employers, or whether it's supporting businesses to become more sustainable and include sustainability as a part of their kind of business plans, but also to for ACH as an organisation in itself is an organisation that is growing rapidly. We have over 100 staff within the organisation, and we have had the opportunity to, whilst we've been supporting other businesses, to reflect on our own business and the growth and how we can amend and develop our policies, in particular around our kind of sustainability and environment and the impact that we have. And with more staff that we have and that we hire means more resources are kind of being used. So it's about balancing that out, and also, you know, our links up with employers in the sector has enabled us to kind of hear about best practice of what works really well, what they are doing, and how we can kind of incorporate that into our own business as well. And then beyond Bristol, we would like to use a lot of the best practice and the knowledge that we've gained to kind of expand that out into the West Midlands. So we have offices in Birmingham, Coventry and Wolverhampton, where we can use a lot of the learnings to intertwine our support there as well.
Say start now and get involved. I feel like as even across the 5 years of our involvement with CCA, we've seen the changes, we've seen the further prioritisation placed on the climate. We've seen instances of climate related refugees increasing across the world. We've seen all of that. So I think any organisation that is considering going on a sustainability journey, it's the time to start is now. You'll see benefits not just for your organisation, for the cohorts that you work with, but obviously also for the planet, which is the main thing.
Once you've started, try and keep on track, because people don't always see this as a priority area. So that's why it's important to have buy-in, especially from people who are interested in this area of work, and just to keep it on people's radars.
Yeah, I think there will be people in each organisation that's really passionate about this, but I think it's if you really want to have an impact, then you need buy-in from the leadership team. And what I would say for HR professionals, you have the unique position in the organisation where you relate with all the departments and the leadership team, and so push that forward, because once you have buy-in from the leadership team and the staff, then real change can happen in this area.
My advice would be sometimes the littlest things can have just as much impact, and looking at ESG strategies, you may be a very small organisation, but you possibly don't need to go through all of that, but the considerations of what you're doing as a community, looking at different funding streams or grant funding that might be available, partnerships that are made. So make partnerships, speak to other communities, speak to other like-minded organisations who might have done this. There isn't a need to reinvent the wheel so much, but just actually learning best practice, I think, is always good. So going to some of these sessions where people are sharing their journeys and really implementing those into some of your plans. And that could be just replacing LED lighting, or looking at ways that you could really bring sustainable measures within the organisation to really bring forward those plans. So yeah, I would say look for those partnerships, best practice, connect with other people, and you don't have to start from scratch to see what else is out there.
To include the voices of people with lived experience as much as possible. So what has been really great about this project is that we have carried out focus groups, feedback throughout the journey, and they've really shaped the way that we've run our kind of programs and the way that we are kind of approaching this conversation. So the main thing is to kind of co-produce and to listen and to take that on board in delivery and in kind of creating these sorts of programs. And I think as well is to network and liaise as much as possible with experts in the field. So whether it is business support organisations who have specific initiatives around supporting with sustainability, whether it's employers in the sector as well. It's around listening to their expertise, taking that on board, but also sharing what we find to be really useful for kind of engaging with the community. So I think it's kind of a circular approach, really, in terms of like that feedback from all elements to kind of make sure that this is a inclusive environment, but also that it is, you know, including all of the kind of up-to-date and sector-specific knowledge and information.